Hey friends, welcome to this week's episode of Not Your Mama's Podcast. And today we have Imran Ghani, a founder of Bipolar Harmony, who transformed his severe bipolar systems into a holistic recovery method. Imran's journey navigates through modern psychiatric approaches and natural healing, offering insights for those seeking a between modern and traditional mental health approaches. He has written a book titled The Five Pillars of Bipolar Recovery: Sleep, Nutrition, Movement, Mindfulness, and Community, which you can find on his website at bpharmony.com. He is here today to share with us how you and your loved ones can also reverse the severe symptoms of bipolar disorder. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I cannot wait to dive into this topic today.
You're welcome, Christina. Thank you so much for having me.
So, how can someone use natural methods to feel better if they're going through a tough time like the bipolar disorder?
Yeah, definitely in light of bipolar disorder, the first step is to get a diagnosis.
Mhm.
Um, if you are wondering if you have bipolar disorder and you do a quick search online, you might feel like you have bipolar disorder because the symptoms are pretty common, but the severity of it is something that is measurable and identifiable by a qualified medical health professional. So seek the help of a psychiatrist, psychologist, functional medicine doctor, and that would be number one. And then you also have the choice of working with a physician who is supportive of your particular desire to work with natural approaches and to maybe, if you are diagnosed and given psychiatric medications, to
Mhm.
one day come off of those psych medications as well. So work with a professional, a medical health professional, but also you have the choice to choose who you want to
Mhm.
work with.
And in your book, you talk about sleep, and it's very important. And I think that's probably one of the most important things for recovery. So, what are some easy things people can do to improve their sleep and their mental health with that?
Sure. Number one, with regard to sleep, is to set a sleep schedule
Mhm.
to go to bed exactly at the same time every night and to wake up every night at the same time. Depending on gender, age, there are different recommendations on how much to sleep. But
Yeah.
overall, the science and the message that is being put out by thought leaders in the wellness space is to sleep 8 hours every night.
Mhm.
And the body has a rhythm of its own, and one must train themselves. Because a lot of bipolar disorder, the symptoms are aggravated or caused by a disturbance in our circadian rhythm. And
Mhm.
so being disciplined about, I must be in bed by 9 p.m. or 10 p.m.
Mhm.
and wake up in 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. So in my own particular schedule, I'm in bed by 10 p.m. and I wake up at 6 a.m.
Mhm.
And to this day, it's the most important thing with regard to good sleep hygiene.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like if you miss sleep, it's really hard to kind of catch up, so I think it's important to have discipline, and it only just makes you feel better, which is all a part about mental health. And then I know also what's really important is like your diet. So why is eating healthy important for your mental health, especially mothers, and what kinds of foods can help someone with bipolar disorder?
Sure. So I know this is specifically geared towards mothers, so I want to just do a particular message to mothers with bipolar disorder or mothers who have a child who's dealing with bipolar disorder to send a message of hope. Recovery is possible. You can live fully again. Your child has the potential to live fully again. It is something that is quite devastating to witness, either for one's own self.
Mhm.
So eating healthy after sleep is the second most important aspect of good mental health. Um, so much of mental health is impacted by diet. Even when someone without a mental health disorder can tell you how they feel after eating healthy and how they feel after eating, something deep fried and a bunch of Coke. Um, but especially in light of a lot of research in the medical space that's called out the connection between the gut and the brain, I advocate for a modified version of the paleo diet, and specifically because it helped me in my own recovery. And what is the paleo diet? It's eating like a caveman or cavewoman. Eating the rainbow is what one of my mentors told me is, I'm like, oh, well, what are the natural foods I should eat? It's like, well, eat things that are purple and red and blue and orange and green and yellow. And that's how you get the diversity of vitamins, of proteins, carbohydrates. But these are things that are not processed and filled with the junk. So from a method point of view, I advocate for the paleo diet. And some of those top foods that are specifically good for bipolar disorder recovery are fish, walnuts, different kinds of nuts like walnuts, Brazilian nuts, almonds, cashews, different fruits, especially apple, banana, um, orange, um, kiwi, cherries. I definitely advocate for carbs, healthy carbs like rice, lentils, kidney beans, black beans, and then the superfood greens like broccoli, kale, uh, and then some of your root vegetables like um, turnips and beets. So these are among some of my favorites, but these are
Mhm.
all very nutrient dense foods. And the reason it's important to eat healthy, especially with bipolar disorders, because um, the mood, it's a mood swing kind of
Mhm.
disability.
Mhm.
And when one eats poorly and one is addicted to things like sugar and caffeine, it for a normal person, it causes swings in the mood. And so for someone who is dealing with bipolar disorder, it just aggravates those symptoms.
Yeah.
So eat the rainbow, eat naturally. And if you're looking for a framework, there's so much research out there about the benefits of a paleo diet.
Yeah, no, gut health is so important. And they say that your gut is your basically your second brain. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease a while back, and it's also like an emotional disease as well. Like I can tell, like when I'm feeling anxious or worried, like I start having a little bit more gut problems, and it's so important to make sure that you are eating healthy. So when you are kind of going through a little tough time mentally, like your body's able to stabilize itself. Like I know it's like so important. Hey there, amazing listeners. Are you feeling stuck or in pain after divorce? Longing for a more purposeful life? Well, Donna McCoff's empowering courses are your ticket to breaking free from the past and creating a life you love. The time to transform is now. First course is Rise Up After Divorce, Recovery, Reconnect, Reinvent. It takes you from where you are stuck to your personal transformation. Along with transforming your life, you get 75% off on this full process course. And this is a limited time offer, so you will not want to miss this. It includes all courses into one holistic approach. And for those who are seeking a more tailored approach and a smaller investment, Donna has broken down the courses into separate modules, creating a total of 5 courses. Course 1, The Road Through Recovery. Uncover where you're stuck and create a personalized plan for moving forward. Course 2 is Reconnecting with Self. In this course, you will learn how to create harmony and balance among the 4 pillars of the well-being so that you create healthy habits, boundaries, and a relationship going forward. And discover where you are now and design a personal life timeline for a bird's eye view of your past. Course 3 is Reinventing Self. Reconnect with your strengths and passions and finding your sweet spot for the joy and happiness in life. Course 4 is Relaunching Yourself. Be the creator of your future by strategically improving key areas of your life. Don't miss out on her valuable freebie, an insight ebook to kickstart your transformative journey. Download your free ebook now. The link is in the description. And also moving and having that physical exercise. So, what are
Yes.
some fun exercises that, could make you feel good, especially if you're dealing with like, bipolar symptoms?
Sure. So, my book, The Five Pillars of Bipolar Recovery, is the culmination of my years of trial and error.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I tried it all. When it comes to exercise, I tried it all, lifting weights, aerobic exercises, yoga. And the principle that I teach in my book when it comes to movement is um, low intensity, long hours. I'll say
Okay.
that again, low intensity, long hours. And the reason I say low intensity is because when I did high intensity workouts, although it's good for my cardiovascular system and for, it's an anaerobic form of exercise, so it's developing muscle, it would tip me over into the manic side. And it would take me a long time to calm down, which would then make it difficult for me to fall asleep.
Yeah.
I say long hours because long hours is, it'll help with calming down, with relaxation, with some of the symptoms that are related to the flight of thoughts, racing thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
With the long hours of doing something low intensity, not only is it promoting the movement of blood and air in the body, but
Mm-hmm.
also gives space for those racing thoughts to kind of calm down. So the top two forms of exercise that I advocate for are walking. Walking is a very um, underestimated form of movement. But it is incredibly, incredibly beneficial for physiological health, for mental health. It's a great way to socialize if you go on a walk with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and especially doing it outdoors, out in nature. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second is yoga. So I'm a certified yoga instructor and I teach yoga on my website. I teach different forms of yoga on in my book. And yoga is, a form of movement that not only engages the physical body, but has techniques for grounding the mind that
Mm-hmm.
often in the state of bipolar disorder is either elevated and is not in a space of rationality. And
Mm-hmm.
yoga is an effective way of coming back to reality. And then also in the depressive phases of bipolar disorder, there are techniques that help elevate mood as well.
Yeah. And what kind of techniques are those to elevate?
uh, for elevating.
Yeah.
So definitely breath work.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most common breath work techniques, or classically known as prana, that I employ is Wim Hof breathing. So
Mm-hmm.
anyone who is listening, you can Google Wim Hof breathing technique, and it is a fantastic way to both elevate and to ground oneself. It works on both ends for bipolar
Mm-hmm.
disorder, that if you're on the high end, it brings you down. If you're on the low end, it brings you up. And then secondly, with regard to yoga, any asana that entails a form of like undulating the body
Mm-hmm.
is fantastic for going from a state that's depressive into an elevated state, or into a state that is out of the murky waters of depression. So things like cat cow is a great way, and switching from warrior to reverse warrior. These are fantastic ways to elevate the mood when needed in a natural way. No pill needed.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I know we sometimes forget that just moving our body is enough for us, because we are energy and we have to kind of like move it through our body. And the best way to do it is through forms of exercise. Yoga is perfect. And you know what? Walking is totally underestimated because I remember when I was at my low point, walking helped me so much. It really cleared my mind and it's just low impact, but yet you really get to like take in your surroundings, when you're walking. It's a different perspective than like just driving in the car. So I love that you brought up the walking.
And especially because, in the depressive phases, you feel intimidated by exercise. Like walking is like a low barrier to entry. So
Hmm.
it helps on both sides. So
Yeah.
I preach walking. I just like randomly walk up to people. It's like, have you heard about the amazing benefits of walking? It's amazing.
So what are some practical steps for individuals to overcome obstacles to stay on track with their mental health routine?
Yeah, so build a support group.
Hmm.
Not the build a support group. And there's three key parties that I advocate for having as your support group. Number one is a qualified health professional, a licensed health professional who's either a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a functional medicine doctor who can diagnose properly what it is that you're dealing with. Bipolar disorder is often the most misdiagnosed treatment that or disorder that people either give to themselves or sometimes a doctor who may be inclined to simply give medication and to make a diagnosis in 2 to 3 minutes will just because it's a catch-all
Yeah.
disorder. It does have salient symptoms that are common, but oftentimes I've seen that a lot of people are improperly diagnosed. So number one is have a qualified medical health professional in your corner. The second are family and friends. Family and friends are really important because they help you stay motivated and they help you be accountable for your goals. And it's important to have family and friends in your support group in case of emergencies. So what happens if I'm in a manic episode? You've got to create some sort of contingency plan. And these are all things that I mention in my book in detail. What are those things that you do with your support group? And the third thing, and it's a sort of shameless plug, is to consider hiring a mental health coach like myself. So in the world of wellness, there's this increasing demand for mental health coaches. And so I've positioned myself in the market as a mental health coach who specializes in bipolar disorder recovery, not only because of the expertise that I have, but also the lived experience of going through it and then getting out of it and now advocating for other people to do the same.
No, it's important. And, we appreciate the work that you're doing. I think community is so important. And then having someone to help, hold you accountable with your goals to reach, is important. And someone who's lived through it themselves, like you, I think it's so important. And also, it's like, why is it okay for you to have to be kind to yourself when you're facing these challenges? And how can someone be nice to themselves? Because I think sometimes we can get caught up, and we end up beating ourselves up. So what would you say to someone that needs to be a little bit nicer to themselves when it comes to, recovery?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, extending from the last answer, having someone like a mental health coach, someone might ask, like, why do I need a mental health coach? And I often respond by saying, why does anyone need a health coach to begin with? They will have certain goals. They want to lose weight. They want to gain muscle. They want to get faster. They want to get stronger. And so they will enlist the support of someone who has traveled the path and who has experience. And so having a mental health coach is really good for setting up goals, for someone who is accountable, but for someone who also says, hey, you didn't reach your goals today. That's okay. Be
Yeah.
merciful with yourself. And it's actually a necessary component of the recovery journey, because in my own recovery journey, there were often times where I became frustrated by my progress. I felt that I should have recovered so much sooner than I was. And I would get frustrated. And sometimes the thing is with bipolar disorder recovery is that it's not linear. There are days where you go up, and then there's days where you're like back in square one, and sometimes
Yeah.
you fall into a worse condition than ever before.
Yeah.
And it feels intimidating, it feels frustrating. And then when the negative thought patterns spiral out of control, that's where it becomes a difficult rut to get out of. So being merciful with myself and with those in the journey is a necessary component, because you're dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
Bipolar disorder. I was just listening to Andrew Humerbin's podcast, 2-hour podcast on bipolar disorder. And he begins by saying, this is a very severe disorder. It's not something that
Be taken lightly.
it's not to be taken lightly. And 1% of the global population is afflicted by this disorder, which total, that's hundreds of millions of people.
Yeah.
Um, so there are definitely people experiencing it. But because it is one of those invisible disorders, no one knows that a person is going through it. And so to add on to the answer to your question is that it is also necessary to create space for kindness and mercy for the people in your life, especially in the case of mothers, to create space and mercy for your children who have gotten this diagnosis. I mean, naturally, mothers are the most kind and merciful to their children, but
Mm-hmm.
often, especially in the years of adolescence and 20s and 30s, where an adult is not acting like an adult, we feel a lot of shame because we know we're not ourselves and we're
Mm-hmm.
struggling to be ourselves. And so there's a lot of the book is, it's important for someone with BP to get education, but it's equally important for the support group, which is often family members, uh, spouse, romantic partner,
Mm-hmm.
colleagues at work, or your social circle. It's important for them to become educated as well.
Yeah.
And that, mercy and kindness is a big part of that education.
Yeah, and they should educate themselves so they can like maybe start seeing the signs in advance and kind of know that like, maybe something's a little off. So it is very important for, even your family members to become educated. And that's why we're so grateful to have you on so we can educate everyone about this. So it is time for the Power Mom Chronicles, and I cannot wait to know what your answers are. And my first one to you is who and what inspires you?
My father is the person who inspires me most. He's a man of principle, a man of good character, and he's my hero.
Love it.
As for what inspires me, it's the natural world. I have a deep relationship with the natural world. Um, used to be a farmer. I once rode my bike from Houston to El Paso. I've camped, backcountry camping in various national parks of the world. So definitely the outdoor world is something that I go for R&R, but it's also where I draw most of my inspiration.
Oh, I love that. And what's the essential part of your daily routine?
With regard to mental health or just anything,
Just anything. The thing
probably
that comes to mind is usually the right answer, right?
yeah, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. It's sleep. I
Yeah.
am very disciplined about 8 hours of sleep, and with the 16 hours that I'm awake, I'm pretty productive, quite pleasant, or at least I think I'm pleasant to be around, and it's the most important thing.
Yeah. And what is something you wished you knew when you were younger?
Um, IQ is not the only indicator of success. So when I was younger, I really emphasized education,
Mm-hmm.
and having grown up, there are other aspects of one's development that are equally, if not more important than um, than simply making grades and studying hard, which it's important, but I would tell my younger self like, hey, socialize more, hey, focus on nutrition and eating well, and focus on building, your skills and working with your hand. So things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Yeah, that's something I wish too. Um, and the best advice you've ever received.
This is a recent advice, and it's probably it has served me very well, which is don't let your ideals get in the way of your ideals.
Never heard that one. I like it.
It took me time to process what that means, but often there are ideals that are at odds with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So an example would be something like wanting to be involved in climate change. And so I get very, very passionate about composting and not wasting water. But another ideal I have is family and community. And those two ideals kind of go against each other because I'm the lone environmentalist in the family, and everyone else like, what's the problem? And that will create friction. So
Yeah.
I've learned that there's got to be a hierarchy of ideals, and so
Mhm.
that it's helped me with prioritizing all of the things I'm passionate about. So that I learned that, okay, I take environmentalism and being eco-minded, but not at the expense of my relationships at home.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. That's a good thing. I've never heard that before. So that's the best advice I've ever received this week.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. All of his links are down below in the show notes. Don't be shy. Go say hi. And thank you so much for sharing your story. And I hope to see you all in the next one. Thank you.